Welcome back. Let's continue the conversation now on the sale of crude to Dangote and other local refineries now in the local currency, the Naira. I'm now being joined on the program by Dr. Muda Yusuf, who is the Chief Executive Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise. Doc, thank you very much for your time once again. How significant is this development?
No, it's very significant. Because one of the biggest challenges we are facing today is high cost of energy, particularly petroleum products. We are talking about petrol, diesel, aviation fuel. And one of the reasons we are facing this challenge is because these products are currently being imported, almost 100%. And with what is happening with the currency, you can imagine the impact on domestic prices, on our foreign exchange, and even on this recurring issue of subsidy. So, and the best way to ensure that we get out of this quagmire is to localize the refining of petroleum products, which is what we are beginning to see with respect to the Dangote refinery and other domestic refineries. But in order to ensure that their own cost also comes down, in a way that this benefit can cascade down to the citizens, we have to offer the crude sales at as much concessionary terms as is possible and as is sustainable. So that is why I think this initiative has been put in place, which I think is a good one. So I think the whole essence is to ensure that we're able to bring down the cost of petroleum products down, by ensuring that the domestic refiners get it at the concessionary rate. So for me, it's a good
listening to
but whether the NNPC
advisor now to the President on Revenue, who incidentally is the chairman of the Federal Internal Revenue Service now. I mean, he said the crude will be sold at the prevailing market rate. So obviously the government may not be looking at concessionary rate here.
The difference is that this will not entail dollars.
Yes.
This is Naira. So the fact that we are talking about Naira challenges are easier to manage than dollar challenges. So the pressure that we put on our reserves has been taken away. The pressure that we put on the exchange rate has been taken away. So that is the advantage that it brings. So it reduces the pressure and it helps to, ensure that you have a much more stable macroeconomic environment. And even beyond that, presently we're expending close to $10 billion annually to import petroleum products. So that's a lot of pressure on foreign reserves. So if you have an arrangement where you can source this at a local currency, in addition to the jobs and all the other multiplier effects that you have from localizing the refining of petroleum products, it's a huge advantage to the economy. So no matter how we look at it, I think it's a very good development. The challenge is whether the NNPC will have the capacity to provide the right quantum of crude, that can actually make an impact for this local refinery. I think that for me is a challenge.
Well, at least what we're looking at here, from what has been reported, what we're looking at here is 450,000 barrels per day. That, of course, which the government has always set aside for local refining. So one would expect that NNPC should not have a challenge meeting that obligation. But then help us to understand the role now, because we understand Afrexim Bank now and maybe one or two local banks have been would be the settlement bank. Help us understand what role they will be playing in this whole arrangement.
Well, I am not in the core financial system, but I do know that perhaps there are some financial transactions that this will involve. And normally when you have this kind of financial transactions, you need some experts, to get involved in it to ensure that you streamline the process properly. Ordinarily, one will think that it could just be a straightforward transaction between the domestic refineries and the NMPC. But apparently, maybe it is much more complicated than that. Maybe that is why these other financial institutions are being brought in. But I think what we can say is that as much as possible, these whole transactions will be made very, very cost effective so that we don't see a situation where we are loading it again with all manner of commissions and things like that. I think that will not be helpful because the objective is to bring down the cost of petroleum products. So as much as possible, we should make the whole process as cost effective as it can be.
Now, earlier I spoke to a petroleum expert now, an energy expert, and he said, look, it's a very good idea, no doubt, and that is good, to process this refined, to process crude here in Nigeria, to do the refining here, but that you look at this whole arrangement, that it still may not lead to a reduction in price when you consider the cost of production. And I want to believe one of the reasons why Nigerians are really excited about this is that they believe that eventually this could lead to a reduction in price. But now we're being told, well, that may not happen. That may not happen. And that even if there's going to be some kind of reduction, it might not be significant at all. That, in fact, this individual suggested that the price may go up if the government does not continue to subsidize the product. What have you got to say about that?
Well, the point to make here, first and foremost, is the macroeconomic effect. Two major challenges we have been facing in this economy in the last 1 to 2 years. One is the exchange rate depreciation, which is arising from the huge pressure on our foreign exchange market. And the importation of petroleum products is one of the biggest pressures on the foreign exchange market and affecting our exchange rate. And the exchange rate situation has a pass-through effect on practically everything. We have just gone through the crisis of protests and all of that. All of this is about cost of living. And at the heart of all of this, apart from the security problem, is the exchange rate. So if we take that transaction in dollars away, that is putting pressure on the exchange rate. If you have an improvement in the exchange rate, it will affect prices naturally. So that is one advantage I think we need to stress. So even as we speak, we see how subsidy. Because from what I hear from the operators, the landing cost now is about 1,200 per liter. And we are selling at between 650, 610 to 700. You can see the subsidy. All around us in our neighboring countries, these products are being sold at about 1,200, 1,300. So you can imagine the scale of the smuggling that's going on, which is very difficult to police. So it's a very, very difficult situation, even for government, because you cannot now put anything about further increases in prices of petroleum. You can't put that on the table in the light of the social consequences of these reforms. So these are some of the challenges that we will continue to bear. But for me, I think the advantage will be much more impactful from the point of view of the easing of pressure on our foreign reserves and foreign exchange, and from the point of view of the fact that localizing production helps a lot in terms of employment, in terms of a lot of positive multiplier effects on the economy.
It's really funny because you talked about subsidy, and you look at the just ended protests that we had, and one of the key demands is that the government should reverse or reinstate subsidy, and the impression is that the understanding for the protesters is that subsidy has been removed, but they do not seem to understand that there's still subsidy and that the subsidy regime is still very much in place.
Yes, at the inception of the administration, there was the complete removal of the subsidy.
Subsidy.
At the inception of the administration, there was the complete removal of the subsidy. But when you look at the exchange rate at that time and now, exchange rate at that time was about 750. Exchange rate today is 1,600. And because it's an imported product, we're still talking about importation. This has affected the landing costs of the product. That is what has brought back the subsidy. It's a dynamic thing. If your price is fixed and your cost has doubled, that means we are subsidizing the product. And I can tell you it's a lot of pressure on government finances as we speak. So it is, again, it's a question of understanding of the dynamics of these issues. The subsidy is still there. The subsidy crept in because we have exchange rate depreciation. So there's still a lot of subsidy being paid. So if somebody is, just as the protester said that we should now go back to 200, of course, that is not possible. It's not sustainable. If you have to retain it at this even 600, 650, we have to struggle to sustain it. And that is one of the things that this localizing of the domestic refining could help us to do, at least to stabilize it at this level, so that the pressure on government finances will not be too heavy. Because I can tell you it's right now, it's quite heavy.
Dr. Muda Yusuf, thank you very much for coming on the program, and thank you for your time as always. We really appreciate this.
Thank you very much, my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Well, that's how much we can take on the program this week. We thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.